Tonight, we've got the Giants playing against the Eagles on Thursday Night Football, and it's a game that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win. They're not losing this game. They're not losing to Jackson Dart and Brian Dable and that nasty front seven that the Giants have, because the Giants aren't very good at football. That's just the reality of it right now. Has been for like the last decade, it seems like, as well. Sorry, Giants fans. Wasn't trying to make fun of you 20 seconds into this, but that's just the truth. And so the Eagles are probably going to improve to 5-1. It is the NFL, so there is a world where the Giants win. But they're going to be 5-1. But they're still probably going to be weird, because that's what I would say that they've been to start the season. And I'm trying to figure out why. And there's a lot of attention right now being paid to the Eagles offense. New offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore's the head coach of the Saints now. A.J. Brown's complaining, and Jalen Hurts' numbers aren't great, but they're 4-1, so how can you really complain, and all this kind of stuff. And so I went through the numbers last night, and this is what I got. First and foremost, the reason why they're 4-1 right now is because their red zone offense is by far the best in the NFL. They're scoring touchdowns on 92% of their red zone drives, which is just incredible. I think whoever's number 2 is at like 77%. There's a 15% gap there, that's a large gap. It just is. And so that's why they're able to win games, because their red zone offense has been by far the best in the NFL. Everything after that, though, is not great. They're 29th in yards per play, so they're not very explosive on offense. They're not having those big Saquon Barkley runs like they had last year. If you've listened to A.J. Brown talk at all, you know that those explosive plays aren't happening down the field that they seemed to be able to make last year. Their offense is very balanced, so they run the football 48% of the time, throw it 52% of the time. I'll be honest, I read that, and I was pretty shocked, because it doesn't seem like they want to throw the football ever, really. Jalen Hurts is 14th in completion percentage on the year at 67%. That is more than effective enough, but his yards per attempt is 24th in the NFL at 6.5 yards per attempt. So that's telling me that, sure, they're very efficient, but they're just not very explosive. And that is really the element missing from this offense. And what's weird about it is A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are both averaging over 10 yards per reception, but neither one of them is averaging more than 5 receptions a game. Like Devontae Smith is at 5 receptions a game. A.J. Brown is only at 4, right? So the passing game, it just hasn't been as crisp or as explosive as it was last year, which is translating to them being really bad on third down. They're 23rd in the NFL in third down offense. They're only converting 38% of them. And it's weird, because there is a part of me that wonders if part of this is because of the tush push, because they know that if they get to 4th and 1, they can tush push and pick it up. But at the same time, they should pick up every 3rd and 1, because they can just do the tush push. So I know that there's an impact there. I don't know how it really impacts it, though. You know what I mean? So we'll kind of see what's going on there. And it's an interesting thing, because this offense should just be so much more dynamic than what it is. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, like, what is the difference between the red zone offense and the offense that happens between their own 1 and their opponent's 25-yard line? And I wonder if, Jalen Hurts isn't scrambling as much, because that kind of seems to be a large part of their red zone offense. Is that what it is? Does he need to use his legs a little bit more? It's just an interesting thing. It may just be as simple as play calling. With that being said, I don't think that it's just that. Everyone is very focused on A.J. Brown because he's talking a lot, and Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts is very stoic and isn't saying anything. I think the issue is they can't run the football. That's where everything started for them last year. Saquon Barkley has, through these first 5 games, he hasn't ran for 100 yards in a game once. He's only ran for 80 yards once. He has 3 games where he's ran the football for less than 50 yards. This is behind what is supposed to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And it's not like, like I get it. Like they played the Broncos this last week. With that being said, like they ran him 6 times. Like once again, that's a play calling issue. I look, I'm not an NFL head coach. Could be, not really, but I do think I'm smart enough to say, hey, how about we run arguably the best running back in football more than 6 times? By the way, they lost that game to the Broncos 21-17. They played the Buccaneers. That's, a team that has a really banged up defense. It's not like their front seven's super elite. They beat the Rams 33-26. That front seven is really good. And they won that game because Jalen Hurts finally threw the ball down the field, right? The Chiefs, their front seven's okay. It's fine. The Cowboys, that defense is terrible. And for some reason, they can't find a way to run the football. And that's the issue. Because Jalen Hurts, in the offseason, he wins the Super Bowl. And so you kind of have to say he's a top 10 quarterback, even if you don't really believe it. I don't know. I don't have any quarterback rankings on my mind right now, outside of the fact that Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in football. And I do think everyone would agree, even Eagle fans, that Jalen Hurts is he's limited. I don't know about very limited, but he's limited. And when I look at the limited quarterbacks in the NFL, the ones that are having success, they all have a run game. Daniel Jones went to Indianapolis. All of a sudden, he's got a run game that he can rely on, and everything's been made so much easier for him. Jared Goff, a large part of his success in Detroit is because when it's 2nd and 4, he can just turn around and hand the ball off to David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs, and they can go and they can pick up a first down. I think a large part of why Sam Darnold is having so much success in Seattle is for the same reason. He's got 2 really good backs and a good offensive line in front of him. And so he can just kind of turn around on first down and hand the ball off and get into 2nd and 6 instead of, being stuck in, 2nd and 9 because his running back only picked up 1 yard. And that is where the Eagles' rushing offense is right now. They have got to start running the football, because if they can start running the football, I think that'll open up Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and all of these other guys, right, that they have out on the perimeter, and they're really good tight ends and all those things. They have to find a way to run the football. And if they can do that, then I think we'll see the explosive parts of the Philadelphia Eagles offense back in action, and we'll be like, all right, they're fine. A.J. Brown is no longer sending out cryptic tweets that are really weird. So I think that's the answer to their offense, and if they can't find a way to run the football, then Kevin Patullo, I believe that's how you say it, their offensive coordinator, he's going to be looking for a new job at the end of the year, because that's the one thing, right? Like when Nick Sirianni has a good offensive coordinator, the Eagles don't just win games, they compete for Super Bowls. When they had Shane Steichen, they got to the Super Bowl. The following year, I don't remember who their OC was, but they won a bunch of games, but they lose in the wild card round to Tampa Bay. And then the following year, they hire Kellen Moore, and then they win the Super Bowl. And now they're back to this play caller who isn't having the best year. Let's just leave it at that. So that has to be fixed at some point down the line here. Defensively, before we get into the defense, subscribe. Defensively, it's interesting, because if you'd asked me before the season what I thought the strength of the Philly defense would be, I would have said, I think that the front seven is going to be nasty, that front four is going to be dominant, and then, they had some guys on the back end of their defense leave, so it'll probably take a little bit of time for the secondary to figure it out a little bit. That has not been the case through these first, 5 games. The secondary is playing really well, but the pass rush and the run defense need to improve a little bit. Okay, their red zone defense has been incredible. 3rd in the NFL in opponent touchdown percentage in the red zone. Once again, that is why they're winning football games. They are hands down, both sides of the football, the best red zone team in the NFL. And if you're scoring touchdowns and you're giving up field goals, then you're gonna start 4-1. Like, that's just the reality of it. They are 9th in third down defense. Pretty impressive. Quarterback completion percentage, they are 2nd in the NFL. Quarterbacks are completing less than 60% of their passes against this Eagles defense this year. Opponent yards per play, they are 16th. Opponent yards per carry, they are 25th. So on a down-to-down basis, they are not doing a great job of stopping the run. And usually when I see this number, I immediately want to see what quarterbacks have you played. And it's not like the Eagles have played like Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels to open the season. Like the most mobile quarterback they played is probably Bo Nix, right? Because Dak Prescott can run, but he wants to win from the pocket. Patrick Mahomes can run, but he wants to win from the pocket. Matthew Stafford can't run, part of being 38-9 or however old he is. Baker Mayfield can run, but he wants to win from the pocket, and so on. So it's not like they're playing these like super mobile dudes, and they're 25th in yards per carry allowed. Like that's not great. They're 28th in sack percentage, and that's obviously like the number of dropbacks compared to how many sacks you have. It's under 4%. That is criminally low. So the run defense, the front seven has to be a little bit better, and the pass rush has to be better, which makes me feel really good about this Eagles defense because they have plenty of guys who can rush the passer. They're really good at defensive tackle between Jordan Davis, who slimmed down a little bit, and Jalen Carter there in the middle. So you feel good about the front seven improving the run defense, and you definitely feel good about the pass rush coming around. And that's with the secondary with, as I said, some new players on it, right? No Darius Slay, no C.J. Gardner-Johnson or anybody like that. So like the front seven is going to come around. I feel really good about it. They went out, they added Jahad Campbell, best linebacker in the draft. Zach Bond was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year last year. So like the front seven gonna be fine. Been very impressed with this secondary, with all of the new faces. So I feel really good about the defense. They just have to figure out the offense. They've just got to find a way to be a little more explosive, whether that's in the run game or the pass game. Do yourself a favor, subscribe. We got NFL content coming out all season long.